Good afternoon. We're coming on the air with major developments involving Donald Trump. This involves New York State's civil fraud trial against Donald Trump and a massive blow to Trump and his sons, Don Jr. and Eric Trump. Judge Arthur Engoron has just released his ruling on damages against both the former president and his sons for the exaggeration of the values of their real estate holdings in order to receive benefits for loans and insurance purposes, according to New York's Attorney General.
Here's something absolutely wild happening right now. While Trump is sitting in the White House running the country, the state of New York is literally getting ready to take his golf courses, like actually seize them. We're not talking about some far off maybe. We're talking about the legal machinery is already in motion, paperwork has been filed, and judges keep telling Trump's lawyers to sit down and shut up every time they try to claim this is unfair. This isn't theoretical anymore. This isn't Trump might face consequences someday. This is New York Attorney General Letitia James filing judgments in Westchester County, putting legal claims on Trump National Golf Club, on his Seven Springs estate, on crown jewel properties in his real estate empire. And the legal mechanism to seize these assets is now in place. The gears are turning, and every court that Trump appeals to keeps saying the same thing. No, you committed fraud. You owe the money. Post the bond or we're taking your stuff. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built John Brown Show to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what actually happened. Back in February 2024, New York Judge Arthur Engoron hit Trump with a massive civil fraud judgment. We're talking about $454 million, not criminal, civil fraud, which means no jail time, but you have to pay the money. And Judge Engoron didn't hold back. He said Trump was liable for numerous acts of fraud and misrepresentation, not just one mistake, not just a gray area accounting thing, numerous acts, plural, over years. Now let me bring the receipts on how the fraud scheme actually worked, because this wasn't subtle. Trump would take a property he owned, let's say Mar-a-Lago, and when he needed to get a loan or impress potential business partners, he'd value it at something insane like $739 million, whatever number made him look richest. But then when it came time to pay property taxes, suddenly that same property is worth way less, because obviously you want to pay less in taxes. So Trump's inflating values when it benefits him and deflating them when he needs to save money. Classic fraud. And Judge Engoron didn't just say, hey, that's not cool, pay a fine. He went further. He imposed what legal experts are calling a near corporate death penalty for parts of Trump's New York business empire. There are monitors now, independent people watching over his company, restrictions on what business deals he can make. The whole thing is designed to basically say, you can't be trusted to run your business honestly. So we're going to have adult supervision now. And that $454 million penalty, that's not a random number. It's supposed to represent all the money Trump made from these fraudulent deals, all the better loan terms he got, all the business opportunities he scored because banks thought he was richer than he actually was. The legal term is disgorgement. You got to give back what you gained from the fraud. And apparently that adds up to almost $500 million. Notice what's happening here. This isn't a criminal case where Trump could claim executive privilege or immunity. This is civil fraud, and the penalties are already decided. The judgment is final. Now it's just about enforcement. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show, because here's where it gets absolutely insane. To appeal a judgment like this in New York, you have to post what's called an appeal bond. Basically, you got to put up the full amount of the judgment or close to it, so that if you lose your appeal, the state can just take that money. You can't hide your assets in the meantime. It's standard legal procedure. You don't just get to say, I'm appealing this, and then move all your money to the Cayman Islands while the court case drags on for years. So Trump's lawyers go to the appeals court and they're like, okay, we need more time. We need the amount reduced because posting a bond for $454 million is basically impossible. And here's the wild part. They claim they contacted more than 30 surety companies. These are the companies that issue bonds. And all of them said no. Every single one. Can you believe this? The guy who says he's worth billions apparently can't find anyone willing to guarantee a $454 million bond. And the appeals court looked at all of this and basically said, nope, not our problem. You got to post the full bond. No reduction, no delay. And if you can't post it, well, then New York can start collecting on that judgment. Now, let me show you why this is so devastating for Trump. Because while his lawyers are running around trying to figure out how to come up with this money, Letitia James isn't just sitting around waiting. She took the judgment and she filed it in Westchester County. Why does that matter? Because that's where Trump owns some seriously valuable properties. Trump National Golf Club in Briarcliff Manor, his Seven Springs estate. By filing the judgment there, she's basically putting a legal claim on those properties. Like if Trump doesn't pay up, if he can't post this bond, the state can literally go in and seize those assets, sell them off to pay the judgment. This isn't some theoretical thing anymore. This is the actual first step in the process of taking Trump's property. The paperwork is filed, the legal mechanism is in place. And every time Trump's lawyers try to stop it or slow it down or claim it's unconstitutional, judges keep shutting them down. Share this video with everyone you know because Trump's legal team is making absolutely desperate arguments right now. They argued this would be an unconstitutional, excessive fine and a taking. They're using capital letters in their legal filings because they're so desperate. They said forcing Trump to sell properties in a fire sale just to appeal the case would be unfair. And you know what the judges said basically? That's how the law works. You committed fraud. You got hit with a penalty. Now you got to deal with it like everyone else. No special treatment because you're Donald Trump. No special rules because you're president. The law applies to you too. Now here's what makes Trump's defense absolutely laughable. His entire argument has been basically two things. One, this is a political witch hunt by Letitia James because she's a Democrat and she hates him. And two, even if he did inflate some values, nobody got hurt. The banks got paid back. No victims, no harm, no foul, and judges aren't buying it at all. Like, not even a little bit. The political witch hunt argument falls apart because, okay, yeah, Letitia James is a Democrat. She's been openly critical of Trump. But that doesn't mean the evidence isn't real. Judge Engeron looked at the actual documents, the financial statements, the property valuations, all of it. And he said, yeah, this is fraud. Clear as day. You can't just wave away documentary evidence because you don't like the prosecutor. And the no victims argument, that's not how fraud works. You don't get to lie to banks and then say, well, they still made money on the loan, so it's fine. That's like saying shoplifting is okay, as long as the store is still profitable at the end of the year. It's still against the law. The banks relied on false information. They made decisions based on lies. That's fraud. Period. Notice what's really happening here. Trump has spent decades telling everyone he's worth billions. He'd go on TV and brag about his net worth. He'd put his name in giant gold letters on buildings. The whole brand was, I'm incredibly rich and successful. That was the core of his political pitch in 2016. I'm so rich, I can't be bought. I'm so successful, I know how to make deals. Trust me, I'm a billionaire. But now when he actually needs to prove he has access to that kind of money, his lawyers are in court saying it's insurmountable to come up with $454 million. They contacted more than 30 surety companies and got rejected by all of them. These are companies whose entire business is issuing bonds for people, and not one of them would touch Trump. Why? Well, a surety company looks at your assets. They look at your liquidity, how much cash you can actually get your hands on quickly. They look at the risk, and apparently when they looked at Trump's situation, they said, nope, too risky. We don't think you can pay this back if the appeal fails. That should tell you something. If you're actually worth $10 billion like Trump claims, getting a $454 million bond shouldn't be insurmountable. That's like 4 or 5% of your net worth. But if a lot of your wealth is tied up in properties that you can't easily sell, or if banks and financial companies don't actually believe you're as liquid as you claim, then yeah, suddenly it's a big problem. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because here's where Trump's arguments get even more desperate. His lawyers told the court that forcing Trump to post the full bond would require a fire sale of his properties, meaning he'd have to sell buildings and golf courses for way less than they're worth just to come up with the cash quickly. And they argued that would be unfair and an unconstitutional taking and an excessive fine. The judges did not care at all. The appellate judge who heard this argument said basically, no, the rules are the rules. You want to appeal, you post the bond. That's how it works for everyone. You don't get special treatment because you're Donald Trump or because you're the president, or because it's inconvenient for you. And that brings us to where Letitia James comes in full force, because she's not waiting around for Trump to figure his finances out. She went ahead and filed the judgment in Westchester County. This is a very specific legal move. By filing it there, she's creating a public record that Trump owes this money. And more importantly, she's putting a claim on any property Trump owns in that county. So now if Trump doesn't post the bond, if he can't come up with the money, the state of New York can go to court and say, hey, we have this judgment, we filed it in Westchester, we want to seize these properties to pay the debt, and the legal mechanism for that is now in place. The gears are turning. Trump National Golf Club in Briarcliff Manor is right there in Westchester. So is his Seven Springs estate, this massive property that's been valued at tens of millions of dollars. These aren't small assets. These are crown jewel properties in Trump's real estate portfolio, and they're now legally at risk. Can you imagine the optics of this? The sitting president of the United States watching as state officials show up to one of his golf courses with court orders to seize it. Camera crews filming as they change the locks and put up signs saying the property now belongs to the state of New York. That's not some far-off hypothetical anymore. That's a real possibility if Trump doesn't come up with this money. And here's the kicker. Every time his lawyers try to fight this, every time they go to court and say this is unfair, this is unconstitutional, you can't do this to a sitting president, judges keep saying no. They keep ruling against him. They keep treating him like any other defendant who owes money after losing a fraud case. Now let me show you what Trump's options actually are, because none of them are good. Option 1, he comes up with the money. He posts the bond. He secures a surety company somehow. Maybe by putting up a ton of collateral or finding some financial institution willing to take the risk. If he does that, then enforcement of the judgment gets paused while his appeal plays out. Could take months, could take years, but at least he keeps his property safe in the meantime. Problem is, his lawyers already said they can't do this. They said it's insurmountable, so either they were exaggerating to try to get sympathy from the judges, which didn't work, or they're telling the truth and Trump genuinely can't come up with this money, which would be wild given how much he's claimed to be worth over the years. Option 2, he tries to negotiate with Letitia James, maybe offer a payment plan, maybe try to settle for a lower amount. But here's the thing, why would she settle now? She's got the judgment, she's got the legal authority to start seizing assets, she's got all the leverage, Trump's the one backed into a corner. So, unless he's willing to make major concessions, there's no incentive for her to cut him a deal. Option 3, he loses the appeal and has to pay the full amount. Which means, yeah, the state starts taking properties, seizing assets, selling them off to cover the judgment, and that's when things get really messy. Because think about what that looks like. You've got the president of the United States dealing with state officials showing up to his properties. There's going to be media everywhere, camera crews, reporters, the whole circus. And Trump's going to be screaming about political persecution and witch hunts and how this is all unfair. His supporters are going to be furious. His opponents are going to be cheering. It's going to be an absolute political firestorm. Share this with everyone, because here's what makes this so much bigger than just Trump losing some properties. This is about the entire image he's built his whole political career on, getting torn apart in a courtroom. For years, Trump sold this story about being an untouchable billionaire who plays by his own rules. But the legal system is now forcing him to play by the same rules as everyone else. And those rules say, if you commit fraud, you pay the penalty. If you can't post a bond, your assets can be seized. It doesn't matter if you're president, the machinery is already in motion, the judgment is filed, the legal claims are in place, and every time Trump's lawyers try to stop it or slow it down, judges keep shutting them down. Now here's what this reveals about Trump's actual finances, because we're seeing the difference between Trump's public image and the financial reality. Trump spent decades claiming to be worth billions. But when surety companies actually looked at his assets, looked at his liquidity, looked at the risk, they all said no. Every single one rejected him. That tells you these financial professionals don't believe Trump can back up his claims. They don't think he's as liquid as he says. They don't think he can come up with $454 million without a fire sale. And that's devastating for someone whose entire brand is built on being incredibly wealthy. Notice what judges keep saying every time Trump appeals. They keep treating him like any other defendant. No special rules, no exceptions, No sympathy. You committed fraud. You owe money. Post the bond or face the consequences. That's it. And that's actually huge for how our legal system works, because the whole point of the rule of law is that it applies to everyone, rich or poor, powerful or not, president or not. If we start making exceptions for people just because they're politically important or wealthy, then it's not really the rule of law anymore. It's just the rule of whoever has enough power to avoid consequences. So when we see judges consistently refusing to give Trump special treatment, what we're really seeing is the legal system saying, no, the rules apply to you too. You don't get a pass. Make sure you're subscribed, because here's what happens next. Unless something changes fast, unless Trump suddenly comes up with a pile of money or wins an appeal that nobody expects him to win, we're going to see state officials start the process of taking his properties. And that's going to be one hell of a show. A sitting president watching his empire get dismantled piece by piece by a state attorney general who's been waiting years for this moment. All because he couldn't stop lying about how much his properties were worth. And there's the conflict of interest issue. Right now, Trump's the president. He's making decisions that affect the whole country. But he's also personally facing this massive financial judgment. So does that affect his decision-making? Is he going to be more willing to make deals with people who might help him financially? Is he going to use his political power to try to pressure New York somehow? These are real questions people are going to be asking. And we can't forget this is just one case. Trump's got other legal problems too, criminal cases, other civil cases, more investigations. This fraud judgment is massive and it's immediate. But it's not the only thing he's dealing with, so he's juggling all of this at once while trying to be president. Here's the bottom line. What we're watching is the collision between Trump's image and reality. For years, he sold this story about being an untouchable billionaire. But the legal system is forcing him to face the truth. Judge Engoron destroyed Trump's fraud claims, found him liable for numerous acts of fraud over years, imposed a $454 million penalty, plus monitors and business restrictions. Trump tried to appeal, but needs to post a bond. Contacted more than 30 surety companies. Every single one said no. Couldn't find anyone willing to guarantee the bond. His lawyers claimed it's insurmountable to come up with the money. Judges said tough. That's how the law works. Post the bond or face seizure. Letitia James filed the judgment in Westchester County, put legal claims on Trump National Golf Club and Seven Springs Estate. The legal mechanism to seize these properties is now in place. Paperwork is filed, gears are turning. Every time Trump appeals, judges shut him down. No special treatment, no exceptions. Rules apply to everyone. Trump's options are all bad. Come up with money he claims he doesn't have. Negotiate from position of weakness. Or watch as state seizes his crown jewel properties. The sitting president facing asset seizure while in office. Unprecedented. The image of the untouchable billionaire is crumbling. Surety companies don't believe he's as liquid as he claims. Financial reality doesn't match public persona. And judges keep saying the same thing. You committed fraud. You owe the money. Pay up or we're taking your stuff. That's where we are. That's the story. And it's just getting started. The legal machinery is in motion. The seizure process has begun. And Trump can't stop it. Can't delay it. Can't charm his way out of it. The courts have spoken, the judgment stands, and New York is coming for his properties. Subscribe right now, because this story is developing rapidly. We're going to see whether Trump can somehow come up with this money, whether Letitia James actually starts seizing properties, whether we get the unprecedented spectacle of a sitting president watching his golf courses get taken by a state government. This is Trump's empire on the line, his brand, his image, everything he's built his identity on. And it's all at risk because he couldn't stop lying about his net worth. The judge destroyed his claims, the seizure has begun, and there's nothing Trump can do to stop it. This story continues. Stay tuned.